Well, welcome, Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. We're learning the subject of covert emotional incest. It's caused so much damage over the millenniums to marriages and relationships, and people end up in all sorts of rehabilitation or damage from this. We've got a lady here who is talking on what is emotional incest. She's doing a brilliant job. She's from a page called Psychology Blog. Let's go on with part 2 of this and see where we go.
Other day they feel like complete nothing, like a loser, and they cannot find this stability. Their self-esteem is constantly up and down, up and down. Second, it is also difficult for them to fit into society, to fit into group, because ever since childhood they did not spend much time with peers. On one hand, it's good that they spend so much time with their parents, learned to speak about more complicated things, to think more complicated way, and they intellectually develop faster. And in some way they have this deep feeling of being special, because they were so special for their parent. But on the other hand, it's often difficult for them to find friends, it's often difficult for them to fit into a group of peers. They either think of themselves as worse than everyone else, or they think of themselves as better, much better than anyone else.
I've seen this as well, the grandizement, self-grandizement. But what happens is you can only be grandized so much in a solace situation. Like, how far can your mother grandize you before it comes ridiculous? What happens is they go through phases where they turn on each other, and this is when they'll look outward for another person to bring something to the table, as it were, outside of the emotional incest relationship. But the grandizement of the child and the mother working together is so ugly.
And it's constantly fluctuating. Third, sad children lose connection with themselves, because ever since childhood they're used to doing, to liking, and even to feeling and thinking what their parents want them to. They have to discover who they are and to create who they are, and this can be very difficult. Next consequence, especially for sexualized incest, eating disorders are very, very common. It can be anorexia. When, for example, a girl starts having more feminine body and her father starts paying attention to this, she starts to associate being grown up, being a woman, having this body, with something filthy, with this unwanted attention, and she wants to kind of lose her weight back into her child's body, to become smaller, so that her father or other men or other people leave her alone. Or on the opposite, she can start eating a lot to become fatter and not so attractive to her father. But in that case, her father starts criticizing her body, and it also is very harmful. Another consequence of incest is that your boundaries are crushed. Such a child who suffered, for example, from sexualized incest, they no longer have a very clear sense of boundaries, of what is okay and what is not. They can easily become victims of pedophiles or of date rape and such. And in general, people who went through emotional incest and people in whose family boundaries were violated, they have problems with their boundaries. boundaries. Either they are too soft, so they share too much, they open too much, and they can be a bit of emotional exhibitionist, like telling very personal things to people they hardly know. On the other hand, they can have very strong boundaries, avoid any intimacy, avoid any closeness, because they remember how in their intimate relationship with the parent they had to abandon themselves to satisfy that person. They do not believe they can be authentic and happy while being close to others, and they put a huge wall around them. Or they can be fluctuating. In one moment they seek this very intimate closeness and they open up too much, they share too much, they allow others too much. In the other moment they realize that this is too much and they instantly put a huge boundary. People can also have problems with anger management because often they were not allowed to show any anger in their childhood, and they can also suffer later on from their coping mechanism. Like for example, this anorexia and overeating is a coping mechanism. Another coping mechanism can be lying. Another coping mechanism can be people pleasing, or coping mechanism can be instantly starting to shout because, for example, their parent didn't understand a calm no, so they had to shout to protect their boundaries. More than that, emotional incest, especially sexualized, have a lot of consequences for later on romantic and sexual life. First of all, they might want to change one partner after another because child and parent relationship are already very powerful and very close. If you add emotional incest to this, it becomes so very powerful, and the emotions children have there are enormous, and they seek to feel those emotions again, and they seek for this person who can satisfy those needs. But they find that in adult world, the more independent they are, the less passion like this they can develop. So they change one partner after another because they just get bored without this huge high from emotion. For their future partner, it can be difficult because a chosen child is used to be the center of attention, and they might not be used to considering the needs of others.
Now, I had a conversation with one of the ladies at the gym yesterday. Did you just notice that that lady said it causes conflict between the husbands? Well, this woman had a son who had some suicidal tendencies for whatever reason. She became his nurturer, as it were, rather than a mother. She became too close to the child. That the husband began to protest. You'll experience this if you're a partner with one of these covert emotional incest people. You'll find that they are so bonded to the mother or the child that you're standing there and you're going, where do I fit into your life? Well, husbands have this trouble all the time with these mothers. And what the mothers need to learn, like this lady at the gym, is that you need to send them to a professional therapist, which she did. And it brought back the boundaries between her and the son and took her back to a healthy place within a marriage. But this is a different story. If you're not a DNA partner, your level or amount of influence is going to be minimal. The majority of the influence will come from and within the emotional incest relationship. You're just a spectator. They'll listen to what you say, but the covert emotional incestual part of their relationship will have precedence.
All the time. Sex life can also be messed up. Deep inside, they might still feel like their husband or wife is their parent, and they don't want to betray them. They kind of invested with their heart in their relationship with their parents still, and they are not separated, so they cannot invest themselves into a new relationship. Secondly, they might associate this emotional and physical closeness with family. Like for example, somebody grows up in a sexualized incest or just in a relationship with a parent who constantly touches them and interferes in their intimate space. They cannot allow themselves to feel sexually attracted to their parent, so they can cut their sexual attraction altogether. They can be like asexual, because if they...
That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What she's saying is because they have to suppress against their desire towards the mother, their sexual tendencies, because covert emotional incest will trigger these sexual tendencies, because they have to suppress them because it's their mother, or they'll go into physical incest, that suppression passes on into the relationships that they have outside the family. So the partners of these people can suffer on the end of this sexual suppression, and it's very damaging and very belittling to people.
They open it up, they're gonna feel the sexual attraction to their parents. And this is a taboo in our society. If, for example, they get into a relationship, they can associate kissing, touching, hugging with something like family, with their parents. And this doesn't turn them on. On the contrary, they might feel weird disgust. So it can be quite difficult for their future relationships.
So it causes a confusion. These are the feelings that I was getting towards my mother, and I knew that I couldn't express them. That passes over onto the person that they're trying to have a relationship with. These feelings, am I supposed to share them sexually with this person because I suppressed them with my mother? There's this constant suppression and confusion and battle going on inside the minds of these people. That's why they end up depressed and in anxiety and all sorts of trouble.
Which parents are most prone to getting into emotional incest? First of all, single parents, especially single parents who don't have friends, who don't have a support group.
Exactly what I find. It's the single mothers, the single fathers that are stuck in this horrible form of behaviour. It's compensative for the loss of the partner.
Group who don't have enough hobbies and enough of life of their own. They start living through their child. If you're a single parent, it is possible. If you're a single parent, it is possible to avoid emotional incest. Just make sure that you have your own life, that you maintain hierarchy with your child. If you have an emotion.
Now, see how she said if you're a single parent, make sure you have your own life. Well, in both cases, the woman tried to have their own life, but the covert emotional incest sabotaged that, and they defaulted back. This is the danger of it. They defaulted back in to the detriment of their relationship to the covert emotional incestual relationship. The covert emotional incestual relationship, under pressure, while the relationship might have suffered pressures and issues probably as a result of the covert emotional incest, they default back to the covert emotional incestual side of their life, and the person having the relationship with them by this time is probably usually worn out, left in confusion, toxified, and needing therapy, while they just go back into their covert emotional incest and wait for the next victim to come along outside the family.
Emotional needs, you go to other adults to meet them and not to your own children. Second risky factor can be that it's a single child. And third factor, if your parents suffered from drug, alcoholic addiction, or if they had mental illness, they were not able to take care of their own needs and take care of your needs.
Yeah, so in the last relationship there was all sorts of substances going on, and you could see that it was only fueling the problem. I did suggest that, you need professional help, therapy, but that was too humbling, I think, for the son. I hope since I've been around that has happened, but she tried to be the therapist and she couldn't hardly help herself. This is where I started to disintegrate and gave in on the whole thing. It was just too toxic.
So you had to be this adult in the family. It is also important to know that emotional incest doesn't just happen between one parent and one child. It influences the whole family. If that parent has a partner but is playing in husband and wife with their child, this partner is going to be mad. They're going to be angry, they're going to be jealous. But the problem is that it's so subtle, not obvious at all. To the outsiders, it might seem that this partner is creating a scandal out of nowhere. Like, what's the problem? Your husband loves your daughter so much. The same goes for the child. Other people say that they are spoiled, that they are ungrateful to their own children. Second risky factor can be that it's a single child.
I just want to play this again because it's vital.
If your parents suffered from drug, alcoholic addiction, or if they had mental illness, they were not able to take care of their own needs and take care of your needs, so you had to be this adult in the family. It is also important to know that emotional incest doesn't just happen between one parent and one child. It influences the whole family.
Listen.
If the parent has a partner but is playing in husband and wife with their child, this partner is going to be mad. They're going to be angry.
Now, this is what happened to me. This is what cost the last relationship. She was so enmeshed with the son. I got to the point where, in the end, I to be honest, I disappointed myself because I was so frustrated and fed up with this relationship between this mother and a son. I just had to tell her to go. Just go. Get away. I'd had enough. That's how it gets you. If you know what it is, that's how it gets you.
They're going to be jealous, but the problem is that it's so subtle, not obvious at all. To the outsiders, it might seem that this partner is
This is the covert side of it. This is the part that if you can get this, right, it's no longer covert. She's talking about the covert part of it, where people are going, something's wrong, but we just can't put our finger on it. This is the danger. This is the part that you've got to be able to get past. If you can recognize it, it won't be so bad on you because you can deal with it fast.
Creating a scandal out of nowhere. Like, what's the problem? Your husband loves your daughter so much. The same goes for the child. Other people say that they are spoiled, that they are ungrateful to their parents, that they have such a perfect family, such perfect parents. Why are they unhappy? They don't realize that there is manipulation, there is invasion, there is control, but all hidden in this kind of golden cage. Even the child himself or even the partner himself can blame themselves and think that they are bad people for having so much anger towards that parent, for having so much desire to go away from this parent. But in reality, of course, this anger is completely natural and normal reaction when your boundaries are being broken again and again and again. Jealousy can also touch other children in family. If there is this chosen child, other children can be so jealous that they can...
100%. You'll see these conflicts amongst the children going on because the golden child's getting all the attention and the other children crack. You see the crack. Oh, it's amazing. This woman's right on it. She's very good.
Can attack, beat them, humiliate them. They can also try to attract attention of their parents in different ways. Sometimes we see a family where one child has huge success in career and is an achiever, while another child is a criminal and a drug addict. The third child still remains close to their parent, goes to their house, cleans it, helps them with everything, but parents still don't love them as much as this chosen child. They all choose different strategies, but the goal is one. They try to attract the attention of their parent in some way. These children that don't have enough attention can also be very aggressive or rude in school. They can get into some subcultures, different groups, like different extremistic groups or criminal bands, just to feel this sense of belonging, just to find finally this family they lack. The world of emotional incest is full of mixed messages. Like, for example, mother can say to her son that you're so kind, you care so much about others, you never ask anything for yourself. On the surface, it seems like she's praising him. But if you go deeper, it can be seen that her hidden message is to say that don't bother me, stay nice. I don't want you to be angry, I don't want you to be sad. Remain as you are because I'm comfortable with the way you are. Parents also do contradicting things. They are codependent with their child and they give them money, give them a place to live, feed them, but every time they do, they remind them that they are not good enough.
Now, this is an interesting point, because in my last relationship, I actually said to the lady, I said, you're like Alice out of the Brady Bunch. You're like a wife to these boys, these young men. You're cooking for them, you're cleaning after them, you're running after them, you're supplying them financially, you're putting a roof over their heads. It was beyond just being a mother. She was like a wife to these boys. It was toxic as you could get.
That it's only thanks to them that they have all that. Parents can even think that they want their child to be independent, that they want their child to be successful. But in reality they don't, because they gain this sense of power of being the provider. Or
Powerful. I recognised this in the last relationship I was in. She wanted those children to be hamstrung. It all looked on the out, all the vocabulary and stuff looked like she wanted them to flourish and succeed in life. But the attention and the effort that she was putting into them was sabotaging that. They were too comfortable. They were in a comfort zone all of their own. She was the supplier of their paralyzed, passive state. Why would you want to leave a woman that's doing everything for you except your washing? Why would you want somebody coming along that she might fall in love with and take that away from you? This is the toxicity of this woman's very good.
also because their child might be their only purpose in life, they feel this huge emptiness. While they have children, they play this role of mother and father, and they interact with each other only as mother and father, and they've already forgotten who they are except for these roles, and they don't really have any connection between themselves except for discussing their children and living through their children. And if their children go away, parents might realize that they're just strangers to each other and they will have to change their lives. So they keep their child dependent on them, often without even consciously realizing it. And in the same...
That's exactly right. They keep their child dependent on them, and the child keeps the mother dependent on them. And now you try and have a relationship with one of these people. You're not going to. You're not going to have a successful relationship, because their relationship is bound up between themselves. You'll be on the edge. You'll be on the fringe, like a soccer player or somebody being a reserve and called in to play a part, but you'll be sent back off when your part is played, because the center of attention evolves around what looks like a normally functioning maternal relationship. It's not. It's far beyond that. It's codependency deluxe. It's an enmeshment supreme. It's covert emotional incest.
time they blame the same child for being not adult enough, not mature enough. So why do parents engage in emotional incest? Of course, it's to satisfy their own needs that are deeply unmet. Maybe they also had traumatic childhood. Maybe in their family emotional incest was also present. And a huge factor is lack of information. They just didn't know it was harmful. This is why I think before having children, people should go through classes of child psychology and learn how it actually works, because children are not small adults and you cannot behave with them in that manner. So in this video I told you what emotional incest is, what are the consequences, how it influences the family. In the next one I will tell you how to fix these consequences, both for children and for parents. Make sure to subscribe not to miss it.
She was brilliant, and I hope you agree. That was terrific. We might,
Bye-bye.
not now, but at some stage we're going to go to her one on how to fix it. But I just want to build on what it is for a while first. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got some reassurance and deliverance and restfulness from that. I definitely hope you got some education from that. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.